laptop. Shh. You're being entirely too loud. Shh. You got this. What? How are you all doing? Mishmash. There's something I want to talk to you about. It's resolutions and VR and streaming and lower end hardware and why resolution is a thing and isn't a thing, but depends on what you want to do and what you value. But normal daily the gumph, sleep. I got some. Not a lot, but you see that gap there? It says I went to sleep after there, right? It's a lie. I didn't. I was listening to podcasts, but apparently I'm like a corpse when I'm listening to podcasts, so it thinks I've gone to the sleep. Funny enough though, it was a podcast about was it Facebook whistleblower from last year before? Where they were talking about how Facebook was manipulating people, or the algorithm was pushing posts that made people reactionary psychopaths, and that was entirely a Facebook thing, which isn't entirely true. The algorithm was pushing things that were popular, and popular appeared to be anything that tweaked the anger effect in people, and so whatever post you looked at and went like, "Ah, no!" You'd spam it, reshare it, like flail at it with comments and likes and that. And the algorithm's like, "Oh, this is well good. Let's feed this to more people." Then it drove people nuts, and apparently that's Facebook purposely manipulating people. They have done that kind of thing before, but so has pretty much every other media outlet under the sun. Because, right, let's be fair, right? We all know that if you can do something to push someone's buttons, that's probably the best kind of thing you want to post to get likes, comments, shares, all that kind of stuff. Reactionary stuff. Example, right? Like console stuff, right? Games console stuff. If you say XYZ console sucks balls, purposely because you know that it's got a big fan base, you know you're going to get a lot of impressions on that just because of the size of the audience and that there are people who are brand loyal. I remember once posting about a niche product. I made a joke video because I had a single board computer that overheated, right? I threw a bag of peas on it to fix the overheating issue. It was an issue, but you could fix it with literally a fan and some thermal paste. But that was kind of not the point. It should, look, in my point, it should have shipped with some of that stuff already in place, because the case would have needed to have been modded that came with the device to allow you to fit a fan and thermal. So I was like, oh look, just fix it with some peas and just throw a bag of frozen peas on it, right? I posted a video as a joke, and all of a sudden everyone went, ah! And got so angry and jumped up and down. It's the normal. So I didn't go back to sleep. I was just laughing myself stupid because of this podcast thing, right? It's the Whistleblowers podcast by Parcast. If anyone's Parcast, it's on Spotify. I think they're Spotify exclusives, which annoys me. Podcasts should not be platform exclusives, but what do I know? I come from the days where podcasts were audio files attached to RSS feeds. Now, the thing that I want to talk to you about today relates to my electric bill. Why? Because we got notification from the electric board. We're using a lot of electricity, and it doesn't actually directly relate to this, to be honest with you, but I've been using my PC a lot for PC VR of late, and I've just been leaving it running constantly. My PC isn't hyper powerful, but it's just there running. I'm like, that's a bit wasteful considering I've got a laptop that could realistically do the same kind of job, just with a few tweaks. It's not as powerful by a wide margin, but it can do the job. So let's turn off the PC, because realistically all it's doing is driving my VR headset at this point. Everything else I do is on my laptop. Resolution in VR. For the sake of this, I'm going to be using an Oculus Quest 2, Meta Quest 2, Facebook Reality Labs, this one. Right, but I've got buckets of other headsets, but this is an easy one for me to example the thing on. Also, this is to show Zenith working, which is a VR MMO that I like to play. I can't realistically play it or stream it on my laptop, but with this little tweak I can. But I'm going to be using VR chat as an example because that's an application I can run that will give me consistent results easily. But same groove applies. So either way, right? Resolution. Why is it a thing in VR? Resolution and frame rate. So standard gaming, you're talking 1080p, 1440p, a bit more. When you get into VR, you are talking insane the resolutions, which realistically depend on the headset, but they are usually much higher than 1080p. Why is that? Because, well, first off, the headset is going to be stuck right on your dome, and they don't want you to be able to see the individual pixels of the display, because that kind of ruins your immersion. You know, in early VR headsets you had like the screen door effect, which was where you could literally see layers of pixels or lines of pixels, the dots on the screen. Wasn't absolutely terrible, but you know, hey, if you can get a high resolution display on there, fantastic. Only downside to that is you need a more powerful machine to drive it. In VR, you also need higher frame rates, which isn't something you have to worry about too much when it comes to standard desktop or console stuff, because you don't. Why is it a thing in VR? You need a higher frame rate, in theory, to try and limit motion sickness. Around, I think they said it was something like 72 to 90 FPS is the sweet spot. If you can get higher, better. But as soon as you start getting them dips, or if you go from smooth to dips, people start to suffer with motion sickness. You'll find actually though that a lot of people will adapt, but it can be a bit jarring if all of a sudden your frame rate starts to kind of fly off the handle and all that. So there's actually just one more trick. There's another reason why resolution is important, and I can't tell you exactly what kind of distortion it is. That may be down to each headset as to what is applied, but basically, because of the way the lenses are in headsets, they will cause kind of a bowing of the image. So like rather than the image being displayed flat because the lens has a curve to it, it will kind of warp the image in or out kind of thing. And the extra resolution, it allows them to correct for that distortion effect. For their kind of push in or push out, they can kind of make it flat again. But then with the higher resolution, it's harder to drive those higher frame rates. And unless you've got a hulking great machine, depending on what headset you have, you're going to have to start making compromises. In fact, there are some folks out there who have headsets like the HP Reverb G2 V2, V2 being the current version now. That headset has such a high resolution display that most people, even with high-end graphics cards, have to start going, "Oh, that's not going to run quite as well as I'd like it to. Better start pushing them settings down a bit. Let's bump that resolution down a bit," which you can do, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this. Because, as I say, I realistically wanted to get away from using the PC, and then I thought that I'd use my laptop, but my laptop does have a bit of a handicap, a couple of handicaps. It is capable of doing VR and gaming at a reasonable rate. It's an Asus ROG Zephyrus G14 2021 model, or it's just an Asus Zephyrus G14 2021, but it has the two annoying things with it. One, Optimus, so a dual GPU, a low power and a high power GPU, but even the high power GPU is limited to like 60 watts, 60 to 90 watts, something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers. And the overall wattage of the machine is, so there's like an output of like, let's pretend it's 120 watts. Right, let's just pretend, okay? The graphics card will use a majority of it, but it has to share, when it turbos up, it has to share that with the processor. And so it's always kind of a balancing act by the machine as to which one it feeds more power to and when, which can be a bit of a pain for some stuff. If you're playing something that's particularly graphics hungry and CPU intensive, something has to give. But that's the joys of the modern hardware. My PC can just kind of brute force a lot of stuff. Laptop that can't. Compromises must be made. The bonus as well to being able to play on my laptop means that I'm more mobile. I know that I'm on a Quest and they're standalone, but I like to stream my VR. And when I started playing Zenith doesn't like my laptop any. It just doesn't. So, or it didn't until I started fiddling with settings again. So I went over to my PC, but my PC requires me to be right here. This isn't an ideal place for VR. So if I can take my laptop and my headset and a single cable, great. So, what have I done to be able to play Zenith, VR chat, Demio, and all that kind of stuff, and be able to stream on my laptop? If you have trouble playing games in VR on your laptop or PC, and you have, well, any VR headset really, this might help you. Right, so what you're seeing here is the Oculus software, and I'm in the devices page and the settings page for my Oculus Quest 2 using Oculus Link, which is the USB mode to turn a standalone headset into a PC VR headset. Refresh rate is locked to 72 Hertz. I can have it higher, but 72 Hertz. And the bit that you want to look at is I've got it set to automatic recommended, and the resolution is 3616 by 1840. That is huge. That is a massive display. Can be changed, but that's what it is by default. SteamVR, all the games I run will be running through SteamVR because that's how I prefer to stream them. And I have that set to automatic. You can do resolution adjustments in SteamVR though. So if you are using like an Index or a Vive or anything that goes through SteamVR, you can make adjustments in SteamVR too. So we'll launch up VR chat, and I'll show you the home world frame rate, and then I'm going to use the exact same world in VR chat, which I find to be reasonably intensive, but I can get consistent results just standing at the door, loading in. So literally just at the door, what's that, like 30, 36 FPS? That is absolutely abysmal and not a particularly pleasant experience. And also note, this is an empty room. There is no one else in this room, so when more people come into the environment with maybe higher quality, high poly avatars or whatever, your frame rate's going to take a hit there, too. So this is not the fantastic. So what we'll then do is I'll hop back into the Oculus software and we'll change the resolution. Okay, so as you can see here, 72 Hertz again, and I've now got it set to 0.7 times rendering resolution, which is 2432 by 1216. Just a fair whack lower. So what we'll do is we'll hop into VR chat again. It's the start and zones frame rate. And we'll hop into the same world and hang out by the door, and you'll see the frame rate, the difference. Look at that. Far more stable. Now, here's a couple of tricks. First off, the footage isn't particularly fair at this point. This is 720p 60 footage scaled up to 1080p, and the video I'm recording is actually 24 frames a second, so there's a little bit of kind of wibbly stuff going on there. Ignore it. The reasons as to why your graphics card may choke. The reason why it may choke is, well, one, it may not actually be fast enough. If it is fast enough, the other issue that you may have is that the resolution of the textures that you're trying to shove onto your card, you may very well be, as you increase resolution, the amount of VRAM you need goes up with it. As that makes sense, like the thing that you are trying to put on your graphics card to do is bigger, therefore it needs more storage to do things. And if you run out of VRAM, so let's say you've got a 4 gig card and all of a sudden you try and stick like 5 gigs worth of textures on it, or 5 gigs worth of load onto it, well, it's just going to choke. There's nothing for it to do. It can't put it anywhere, so your frame rate will just instantly fall off the planet. So, you know, realistically, it might not be a fault of your machine. As I say, there are people out there with HP Reverb G2 V2s and like, I don't know, 3070s or whatever, and they start pushing them high resolutions and bam! They fill that VRAM and it just falls apart. So fill the VRAM, or just the machine isn't powerful enough to, the card isn't powerful enough to render. That is just entirely a thing. So compromises must be made. Should be noted as well that the real issue you're going to have with dropping the rendering resolution, if you're planning on streaming at least, the people watching the stream aren't going to have a huge, there's not anything realistically going on with the video quality that they're going to see, because the video quality they are going to see is coming from a preview window slapped on your desktop. That doesn't really change when you bump the resolution. I could realistically put a side-by-side of the captured footage in, but if I do that, that encourages pixel peeping, and I think in the heat of the moment, when people are rocking around in games, unless they really know what they're looking for, they don't notice. Like, even if you go from like high to ultra textures, a lot of people don't notice when they're playing games and they're running around shooting things, or, you know, absorbed in this gorgeous open world environment. They don't notice. It's only when you stop and start pixel peeping that it really matters. So no side-by-sides. And actually, just to throw out there, this is VR chat in desktop mode, and it's locked to 60 FPS. It is so much easier to drive things standard desktop mode than it is through VR. As I say, that's a whole nother ball game. Resolution's much higher in VR. Frame rate is much higher in VR. So you have to really temper your expectations. You could go into SteamVR and set SteamVR's resolution to like 8:6 or something like that, like a super low, like someone has just wiped their ass with your VR headset's lenses resolution. It will just look like a blur, but the preview window used to capture for stream will still look crisp. It's only really affecting what's going on in your headset. So, for For me, as long as I can still read text on a screen, that's good enough for me. I do not mind a resolution hit. I could sit and play these things on my PC with no issue at all. None at all. But the idea of being able to play anywhere, even if on a lower power machine, I will take a resolution hit, but be able to go anywhere with it, than being able to have like the super pretty thing but be stuck in one room within a few feet punching and kicking TVs and tables and all that kind of stuff. I don't have a dedicated VR space, which actually reminds me that whilst it's not particularly clean right now, I posted a picture up in my Discord today because we were all just kind of chatting about our VR spaces, and I was like, look, I don't use base station VR headsets. I have base station VR headsets, I just don't use them. I have a Rift CV1 and I have a Vive. I also have a Vive Cosmos set up that I can use the base stations too, but like I don't actually realistically have the space for base stations. And I looked and I was like, wow man, the picture I posted up, this place looks like a bomb has hit it. So we kind of did a bit of pottering about and cleaning, but I mean, I do not have space to have base stations up. Like this, like my arms, that's my VR space. If not, I'm like, and at that point I'm swinging over a sofa, swinging over a laptop, kicking sofas and things, and you've got to think those base stations will take up extra space in my room. So you know, inside out tracking's kind of a thing for me, and the freedom to be able to move out of this room too is also just much nicer. I can play in standalone, but I do like to stream what I do in VR. It's just that little bit of extra fun. It's the kind of social aspect of it too, and I can share how much fun I'm having in VR with people, so they might get into VR too. It's just rad. As I say, if you are using like Vives and indexes and stuff like that, you can do the same kind of thing in the SteamVR settings. Just go into like the video settings and then choose either all, or you can choose per application to adjust it. And by making these adjustments, I have enough headroom on my graphics card now that I can stream in 72060. Again, it's not the 1080-60 that I get off my PC, but it's plenty good enough for what I want and gives me that little bit of extra freedom. Freedom over the, you know, freedom and convenience over resolution, realistically, for the me. But yeah, just figured this might be helpful because I've got some mates who are rocking some pretty old school PCs, like graphics cards that are probably a good 5-6 years old, 970s, 980s, Fury X's, 10 series cards, that kind of stuff. They're not hugely old, but they're getting long in the tooth. If you have some old hardware, older hardware, and you'll want to give VR a go, and maybe you've tried and it's a bit sluggish, try just dropping the res. As I say, if you don't mind taking a hit in headset, you're all good. Does my VR, does the stuff I see in headset look as good as some of my mates when I'm playing on the laptop? No. You know, does that really matter though? No, because can I still read it? Yes. You know, does it still look better than Quest standalone? Yeah, so I'll take it, you know. At the end of the day, it's about being able to get in the game and interact with people and just have a laugh. Or, if it's not a social VR experience, just getting in there and having a good time, just having a laugh. You know, popping people's heads in some random shooter, or, I don't know, climbing up a skyscraper in the climb or whatever. Throwing some magic frisbees in the Echo Arena or whatever. Like, just, I don't think the res matters as much as the experience that you actually have. if it looks a bit blurry and all that kind of stuff, you're at least just still in VR. And so I think, you know, stretch that old hardware out as best you can, given the current cost of graphics cards, because it's pretty bad. You're paying more for a middle-of-the-road graphics card these days than, in a lot of cases, a VR headset. So, you know, this will open the doors for a lot more people. It's not all about the res, really. Even the big boy PCs can get crippled by some of the higher res headsets. So, yeah, just figured I'd throw it out there. If you can hear background, by the way, it's Pengy. It's been streaming all the day. What is that, like Lost? It's the new game by Amazon. I don't know, he seems to be having a lot of fun with it though. I hope. Yeah. I'm going to do a proper stress test tomorrow in Zenith. I've had the same issue before with Demio. It's when I first started noticing it on the laptop. So just changing the render res helps out a great deal. I mean, if you don't want to stream, you probably won't. You might not have to do this, but if you do still have issues in VR, just drop the res. I'm heading off. Hope you're well, and I'll see you all with a bit of luck in the next one. In fairness, actually, the render res is useful because I managed to catch this insane pull in Zenith today. I wouldn't have been able to have done that on my laptop if I hadn't have dropped the res, because even just running around in this zone without like capture would have choked like mad. So it works. It does work.